Here is another video with the OKTV Today YouTube channel. In this episode you'll get to see all new episodes from Yellowstone, Special Ops Lioness, Landman, NCIS Origin, The Day of the Jackal and so much more, all coming up next on this video. Number 8.
You don't want me to drive you?
I'd be with you. What? No more surprise visits. Thank you for this.
On top of this list this week is Yellowstone Season 5 Episode 11, mostly because of mixed feelings, and I don't know how to cope with the departure of Kevin Costner. Yet. This week's episode, surprisingly, goes way back in time to reveal the real assassination team preparing to orchestrate John Dutton's murder. Kelly Riley's character Beth gasps as the gunshot is fired. She is feeling the effects even though she is traveling back from Texas. Over the phone, she informs Rip Wheeler, Cole Hauser, that something is amiss. Meanwhile, Case, played by Luke Grimes, awakens from a nightmare. He asserts that it wasn't a dream. Beth, Kelly Riley and Rip, Cole Hauser bid farewell in the Texas motel before to John Dutton's passing, with Beth intending to drive through the night to return to Montana. Case and his family equip their home in the interim. However, the real procedure that killed John is also shown to us. 3 guys in all black enter the governor's residence covertly, seize a sleeping John, strangle him until he faints, transport him to the restroom, and fake his suicide. Beth has this sudden, terrible sensation as she drives into the night. She contacts Rip to check on him, and he's okay. In addition, Case feels uneasy and wakes up in the middle of the night to what he believes to be a disturbing dream. However, he discovers it wasn't a dream when the cell phone starts ringing and it's the cops. This episode's final flashback occurs when we meet the newly appointed governor, who is taking the oath of office prior to a formal election. He informs Jamie, Wes Bentley, that he disagreed with John on what was best for Montana, even if he is John's deputy governor. Jamie is okay with his wanting to bring the market equities transaction back. Following the swearing-in ceremony, the governor meets with Jamie and Linnell, played by Wendy Moniz, in his office. John's assistant, Clara, Lily Kay, is waiting for them after receiving an offer to become the incoming governor's chief of staff. The market equities trade is what they enter. John has already put the area under a conservation easement, but Jamie already intends to re-establish the lease. The governor inquires as to whether the state may use eminent domain to seize the land in order to exert control over the lease. Jamie is amenable to the concept. All of this, according to Linnell, is a mistake. Eminent domain enforcement may take years, and removing the conservation easement will be more difficult than Jamie anticipates. She fears that if they adopt this new concept, it would put a pressure on Montana, even if John's initiatives were self-serving and reduce the region's reliance on real estate and tourism. Although Linnell departs, the conversation goes on. Jamie, who feels that the market equities agreement is the only option to maintain the ranch, thinks he still has a duty to do it if at all possible. However, the government must seize the land in order to proceed with the project because Beth and Case would never sell. After hearing all of this, Clara decides not to accept the position of chief of staff. When Linnell offers her a position at her Montana office, she chases after her. However, Linnell points out that Clara is technically jobless and is so exempt from privacy regulations before she formally joins her workforce. Case has to provide evidence that John's death was not a suicide. As though this were a homicide, he goes to the coroner who performed the autopsy and asks for a toxicology report and a second examination. The coroner first finds nothing new, but Case shows a method that troops employ when attempting to knock someone out in secret. This makes it easier for the coroner to see that John's legs and neck are bruised. She says she will amend the cause of death to undetermined, since she now thinks John was forcibly restrained but is unable to prove it was a homicide. After that, Case meets with the investigating detective and requests to view the murder weapon. Security footage may reveal who took the firearm, a Livestock Commission Service handgun that ought to have been locked up in a separate city. In light of this, Case requests that the police declare that John's death was a homicide. They can identify who paid them, but Case is aware that it won't aid in the hunt for the murderers. Case still needs to make a halt. He pushes his way across Jamie's desk and into his office. Although Jamie is aware of the situation right away, he attempts to warn Case that he cannot listen to Beth. Insisting that Case is still fighting to preserve the property, he wonders whether Case truly thinks he could do anything like kill John. Case believes Jamie is being honest for his own sake. However, Jamie's situation can get more difficult when the police offer a news conference, shocking Sarah, Dawn Olivieri and Grant, Matt Gerald, who planned the attack. To exacerbate the situation, the governor directs Jamie to abstain from all John-related activities, including the market equities agreement, in light of the recent events while addressing the state legislature to repeal John's policies. Case is informed by Beth, who witnessed the governor's speech from the ranch, that their only choices are to sell off portions of the ranch for a small portion of its true value or to lose it completely. Mo brings Plenty and Rainwater, Gil Birmingham show up to chat and express their sympathies. Even though their motivations differed, Rainwater tells Beth that he understands John's aim of keeping the ranch intact and is willing to assist in keeping the place pristine. Beth points out that while some private equity firms are interested in preserving open space for experiential hospitality, they are aware that they will eventually be unable to prevent the property from being built and occupied. She regrets that John could have controlled the land's development and better monetized it. They are now only seeing its demise up close. Though he is unsure of what it means, Case informs Mo that his vision from Season 4 indicated he would have to choose between his family and the ranch. Mo claims that he will know what to do when the time comes and that it won't seem like a choice but more like fate. In an attempt to contact Grant, Sarah purchases a burner phone, however, the number she was provided is no longer operational. We have never seen Sarah look so flustered. Jamie arrives, claiming that his career is in ruins and that her grand scheme failed. In order to improve his standing in the upcoming election, she claims the governor is attempting to separate himself from Jamie and place the responsibility on him. Regarding the murder inquiry, they just have stuff that can be explained away, they don't actually have any proof. Nothing relates to Jamie, she took the chances and claimed to have done it for him. Jamie smacks her when she calls him weak, but Sarah immediately slaps him back. She adds this before leaving, when a man who creates a name dies, the name dies with him. Jamie became much less significant without John. When Jamie calls to apologize, Sarah doesn't drive too far away. Jamie must trust her, she adds. She is stopped at a light when a couple comes up next to her and asks her for directions by rolling down her window. Is she Sarah Atwood? The guy asks. How could he know that? She asks. Instead of responding, he takes out his revolver and shoots her once in the head and then twice in the chest to ensure her death. All of this is happening while Jamie is still on the phone. Knowing that his number would now be the final one on Sarah's phone when the police take it as evidence makes him fear. Number 7.
On the 28th.
Ultra-sensitive scanner, but I've got an idea for you.
Are people looking for me?
What sort of vibe would you say I have?
The day of the Jackal Season 1 Episode 7. The Jackal, Eddie Redmayne and Zena Jansson, Elena Matsuura first meet at a Tallinn, Estonian library at the beginning of the episode. The British Embassy received MI6 agent Vince Pine, Nick Blood and MI6 agent Bianca Pullman, Lashana Lynch yesterday night, he informs her. If her people can handle them, he asks. She accepts, surprised that he asked for her assistance. Khalid Abdul, also known as Yul Dag Charles, UDC, is expected to arrive on Friday, she claims. He insists on payment as soon as the task is over and won't tell her about his intentions. Vince and Bianca join Operation Anubis at the British Embassy. They are informed by a sitter Halcrow, Chukwudiawuji, that Oscar Ilves, Tambit Tuis, their liaison, is looking through every hotel. The Jackal's composite drawing is made by Cole, Raiko Gohara. Though not Vince, Bianca is certain it's him. Because the MI6 lost sight of the assassin in Hungary, Keith Canvey, Martin McDougall cautions UDG against travelling to Tallinn. According to UDG, if River decides to stay alone, his adversaries will triumph. Teddy, Patrick Kennedy tells them that the visitors are clueless about their destination and have signed non-disclosure agreements. He worries about the impact on UDC's reputation of calling off the event. Anything would be better than being dead, Keith tells him. Rasmus, Andreas Jessen is informed by the Jackal in Tallinn that he possesses the Constadisseral's plans. They enhance one another sensually. Nuria, Ursula Corbero worries Marisa, Pucci Lagardi and Alvaro, John Arias. When Constadisal shutters in Tallinn, Rasmus offers to drive the Jackal there. According to him, only certain individuals will be permitted entry to the location, which will be restricted to the general public. They're going this afternoon. Alvaro begs Nuria for $40,000 in Cadiz so that he and his buddy Antonia might buy a company. According to Marisa, the purchase would transform his life. The Jackal observes a live video from Tallinn of Alvaro taking cash and a firearm out of a locked room in his home. When Nuria isn't looking, Alvaro tucks further bundles of cash into his belt. Rasmus and the Jackal are at the Constadisal in Tallinn. He receives his passkey from Rasmus. The Jackal returns the passkey after taking a quick look around before heading out. A sitter informs Bianca and Vince at the British Embassy that Keith is remaining silent over UDC's visit to Tallinn. Oscar phones to let them know that last night, Peter Gibson, an Airbnb guest, was recognized by Officer Kova, Jane Knapp as the facial composite. Vince and Bianca are attacked outside the embassy. At least one attacker gets away with it. When a sitter gets there, she implores Bianca to return inside, but she is adamant on going to the Airbnb. When Oscar and the tactical squad with guns knock down the door, it is empty. The Jackal and Rasmus bid each other farewell. Doug Wojak, Corey Jackson and Timothy Winthrop, Charles Dance talk about Russians and Lester Coglan's, Brian Casp interview in New York. Kova says he saw a man who looked like the face composite at the Airbnb in Tallinn. The Jackal is requested to halt at a security checkpoint outside Constadisal. He opens his backpack and remarks that it is most likely his boot. He is allowed to pass by the guard. Kova reports that upon returning to the Airbnb, the individual was in possession of Peter Gibson's passport. He paid for the rental with a credit card. The Jackal uses money to buy water and food at Constadisal before settling in. The Jackal moves to the high level and climbs to a ventilation vent just above the concert pianist, Balant Barath, after he stops playing. After taking a pistol out of his boot, he silences it. The lights go out as the concert concludes. The Jackal has death and battle in his nightmares. He recalls his initial encounter with Nuria. A sitter informs Vince and Bianca that the attackers are Russian at the British Embassy. She is adamant that she is being targeted for murder. He claims that since the Tallinn Airbnb rental, Peter Gibson's credit card has not been used. When the Jackal senses footsteps above, he is still within the air duct of Constadisal. As Rasmus enters the security body scanner, Keith observes. He receives a facial composite of the assassin from Bianca and Vince. Keith doubts if it is accurate. She said that a police officer confronted the assassin directly. She displays to him the disguised Jackal. Keith clarifies that he will be the sole person in charge of admission for the UDC event and that he intends to vacate the facility by 6 p.m. Armed guards will have access to the top balcony. From the air vent, the Jackal observes Bianca hand Keith something belonging to him. The theater is sniffed by security dogs. There is no DNA found on the Jackal's item. The Jackal thinks about Nuria to keep his thoughts occupied. Invited visitors stream into the Constadisal the next day. Bianca and Vince are screened by security. Chris, Russell Ballow, is sent by Keith to inspect the building. Christy Mayer's character Lenora Boggs comes via helicopter. Through the vent, the Jackal can see Bianca. Arriving at the location are Rima Buttons, Lourdes Fabias and her group. Bianca and Vince are informed by Keith that UDC will come in 10 minutes. The Jackal observes as people stream into the theater via the air vent. Keith tells UDC to remain close to the bulletproof glass in the green room. Teddy and UDC have a quick kiss before he gets into the elevator. As she enters the stage, Rima is presented. The Jackal comes out of the air vent on the top floor. Adam, Hopik Poku Jr., Jasmine Pullman, Florissa Kamara, and Paul Pullman, Sule Rimi watch the event on television. A security guard is killed by Jackal on the top floor. Winthrop, Xena, and Coblin watch Rima's address on television. As UDC enters the stage, the Jackal in the baton observes. From behind the bulletproof glass, UDC addresses his visitors. The Jackal continues to point his firearm at UDC. A shot is fired at UDC by Chris. A shot is fired by the Jackal. UDC is surrounded by armed guards who lead him off the stage. Chris has been shot. It is revealed to Bianca and Vince that there were two shooters. Paul switches off the television after spotting Bianca on it. Doug wonders if UDC has passed away. Together with the visitors, the Jackal leaves the premises. Rasmus knows who he is. He is killed by the Jackal. The show comes to an end. Number 6.
Jade's sick! He can't speak!
Big announcements.
a stylist, a haircut, and
Where is it?
Do with my master's in literature.
all right.
Franchise Season 1 Episode 8 Scene 117 The Death of I. Pat calls Anita in a panic at the start of Episode 8 of the franchise, informing her that Shane has become ill and is unable to communicate. Pat will thus represent him at Comic-Con. Anita notices a comment that she wasn't intended to read when he asks her to change Shane's speech for him. Tecto pulled. Peter's final day on the set is set aside for filming I's death scene. Because he's anticipating a call from another brand led by Bryan Singer, he's usually in a good humor. Adam is also excited because he will soon be featured in a GQ fashion story. Dan is approached by VFX artist Dave, who requests a much-needed vacation. Daniel agrees politely. Dag, meantime, fears that she will be taken into custody for the bridge incident and imprisoned in Armenia. When Anita shows up and informs Dag and Daniel that Tecto may have been removed, the terror worsens. Daniel and Anita determine that they must approach Shane directly, avoiding Pat. Daniel offers to change the film's tone from somber and serious to light-hearted and enjoyable. He even pulls out a notebook filled with scrawled storyboards, thereby transforming it into his version of the movie rather than Eric's. Daniel suggests they can show Shane and the others by recutting the whole first act of the movie. They give poor Dave 6 hours to animate Daniel's storyboard and mockingly refer to it as the Kumar cut. Naturally, they will want Eric in order to communicate with Shane, therefore Daniel's job is to persuade him. Eric is unhappy at discovering a shoelace in his dinner as Daniel and Dag approach him. Additionally, he fears that if Tecto fails and Daniel is unable to raise the problem, his entire career would be lost. Daniel instructs Jazz to plan the recut of the movie without informing Eric. The crew has constructed a phony facsimile of Peter's head to represent its explosion in order to film I's death scene. Peter ultimately loses it when he is asked to replicate the model's precise expression. He crushes the phony skull and insults the entire crew. There is a loud siren that prevents him from storming off. Jazz tells everyone that the team is trapped within the set for their safety since there is a guy with a knife on the loose outside. Peter receives a call from Bryan Singer while they are waiting, but the news is not good. He has no part in it. When Adam's GQ story appears, he starts to worry because Twitter users claim that the sweater resembles a dress, which is true, but Daniel assures Adam that it isn't. Suddenly, one of the cameras on the crew shows the man outside. Dave is here. Additionally, he has a pen stuck in his leg rather than a knife. However, he is also on the verge of losing it and insists that this movie be titled after his daughter Emily. Eric is shocked when he finally reveals the Kumar cut during his tirade. Eric becomes irate and taunts Daniel after he attempts to explain that he was attempting to salvage the film. Dave has left the set area, and the lockdown has been released, Jazz tells the others. As they leave, they spot Dave driving off with the dit truck that has the recut of the movie on it. Finally, Anita suggests that the three of them speak with Shane alone, without Eric. She joins Shane on the phone with Dag and Daniel, but Shane is off camera and they are speaking to Bryson. The new version of the movie, which Dan refers to as a buddy movie, is explained. In a passionate statement, Daniel states that he thinks Tecto can bring the franchise back. When Shane doesn't answer, they end the conversation feeling less hopeful than before. After bringing the group together, Pat announces that Tecto has been pulled forward, just as they think they have the axe. Due of the uproar surrounding the male main actor's perversion, Centurios 2 has been halted. The studio's summer tentpole feature will now be Tecto. They have half the timetable and 3 times the budget. Pat informs Anita separately that the choice was between Anita's film and another. The vote ultimately went in their favor because of their impassioned call with Shane. Daniel tells Dag that she won't be going to jail and that the demolition worker has been arrested for the bridge disaster. Even though Daniel's efforts rescued the movie, Eric informs Daniel that he no longer trusts him and fires him while everyone is celebrating. When Pat stops by at the end of the franchise episode 8, Daniel is prepared to go home and spend some time with his kid. To Daniel's surprise, he discloses that Shane is impressed and is making an offer.
Darren Lehigh!
Number 5. Tracker Season 2 Episode 7 Man's Best Friend.
I don't think he's a stray. He's got a collar and a... Let me get a crack out of here.
Good, right there, perfect.
Coulter Shaw's love of dogs is confirmed in episode 7 of season 2 of CBS's Tracker. Coulter, Justin Hartley prevents a service station employee in Denver from grooming a hungry dog that is searching through the trash as he is filling up. Coulter notes that the dog has a collar and leash, proving he is not a stray. When Coulter says, "Sit," the dog instantly reacts and lets him take a thorn out of his paw. The dog is called Barkley, based on his tag. His address is also on the tag. After giving him several head rubs, Coulter promises to take him home and takes a picture of the address. After loading him into his pickup, Coulter goes inside to make the payment. Upon his return, he discovers that the dog has vanished and that the rear passenger window has been shattered. He gives Velma, Abby McInerney, a call and tells her what he's doing, but not much is revealed. There is no video of who took the dog since the security camera's view was obscured. Velma will keep searching for Barkley even though she can't locate anybody online. When Coulter gets to Barkley's house, he discovers that the front door has been damaged. He hears a commotion upstairs and discovers a mother and son gagged and bound. The mother claims that she heard someone kick in the front door last night after going upstairs after returning from work. After running downstairs and grabbing her revolver, she discovered a guy holding a gun at her son, Aiden. The man told him to comply and disarmed her. He was wearing a mask, so she was unable to see him. He left them after tying him up. They don't know what else the man could have stolen, but according to Aiden, he snatched Barkley. Coulter thinks the man was there only to take Barkley, not to commit robbery. As the police check around after the mother calls, Aiden's anguish about Barkley is evident. Coulter claims that when he was younger, he had a dog named Tuffy who wasn't tough at all. He enjoyed eating socks. Coulter describes what a rewardist is when Aiden asks what he does for a living. He has never searched for a missing dog before, and if he finds Barkley, Aiden gives him $187, his birthday money. You know what? It costs just that much to locate Barkley. Coulter, whom we adore more than we do at the moment, adds, "I will definitely help you find that dog." Coulter offers to show Detective Anderson where the dog was last seen and explains how he became engaged in this. The investigator asks Coulter to go since he doesn't appear to believe his idea that this had anything to do with the dog. When Coulter inquires about Barkley, the mother discloses that a man contacted yesterday to inquire about purchasing their dog. After her husband passed away last year, they took in Barkley from a rescue shelter. Coulter says that he has come to assist her son, who paid him to find the dog. The mother affirms that Aiden was online at the time of the break-in, and Coulter notices the video game camera. Bobby, Eric Grace, shows up with film from the previous evening when Coulter contacts him to break into the video game camera. He shows the masked man breaking in by streaming the video to Coulter's cell phone. Coulter discovers that a vehicle key with a tag attached is dangling from his pocket. It turns out that the tag is that of a car rental firm. Bobby learns that the last person to hire the vehicle associated with that tag was Max Miller. There are blood droplets outside the home as Coulter gets to Max's residence. Coulter glances inside as the door is kicked open as well. He takes a photograph of Max smiling with his fellow troops in a framed shot. Coulter is suddenly attacked by a guy, who is defeated by Coulter. He commands the man to clarify the situation as he is being held at gunpoint. Max served alongside Nate Riggins, Dylan Bruce, and Coulter claims he's only trying to find the dog. When Max went to rehab last year, Nate disclosed that Barkley was his puppy and placed the dog in a rescue center that would find him a loving home. Max called Nate yesterday and said he needed to locate his former dog. When Nate heard gunfire and the phone died, he stopped making sense. Ever since he met his wife, Chelsea, Max has been living a clean lifestyle. Coulter notes that there are indications of a battle inside Max's home and that someone smashed down the door. Max's wife also vanished. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Nate volunteers to assist. After pausing for a moment, Coulter returns his revolver to Nate. Bobby claims to have examined Max's phone logs and social media profiles. Nothing out of the ordinary can account for Max and Chelsea leaving their phones behind or for Max renting a car in order to take Barkley. Bobby pledges to look into the GPS trackers used by rental businesses, which Coulter recalls. When Coulter discovers the name Lawson on a pad, Nate explains that Lawson was a dubious private contractor who had access to pricey archaeological sculptures. Although Nate warned Max not to become entangled, he believes Max was. According to Nate, Max appeared anxious and refused to discuss his call to the Department of Criminal Investigations, DCI, last year. Where Max would have hidden the sculptures is unknown to Nate. Coulter investigates the yard after noticing that the shed is empty of a shovel. No new holes have been found. If Max forgot where he buried the sculptures, Nate thinks he could have required Barkley's assistance in finding them. Barkley is able to locate anything. Bobby gives Coulter the address of the rented car, which is not far from where Coulter discovered Barkley. Nate and Coulter look around as the automobile appears. Coulter notices a thorn that is like one he removed from Barkley's paw, and Nate knows the site as Max's fishing spot. Coulter discovers new paw and shoe prints when he goes down by the river. They run toward the dog when they hear it barking. Max is digging as Barkley is tethered to a tree and barking. Max informs Nate that Lawson has his wife while brandishing a revolver. Coulter introduces himself and says he's here to help. Max acknowledges helping Lawson take the statues when he was in Africa. Lawson said his arrest was because of Max. Lawson wanted the sculptures last night when he brought his wife to his residence. Max has been feverishly looking for the sculptures, but he is unable to remember their location. Max buried the sculptures to put them out of his mind since he should never have gotten involved with Lawson. Max suggests torturing Chelsea if Lawson is unable to find the sculptures. To find out more about Max, Fiona Renee meets with a DCI captain. She is aware that Max worked for a private contractor conducting military operations in West Africa. The captain passes over a folder after Renee says that Barkley, Chelsea, and Max have disappeared. David Lawson was a layperson who assassinated 2 guards and looted rare, historically relevant objects. Lawson bribed his way out of jail 2 weeks ago, and there is no evidence connecting Max to the crime. He is sought in the United States on allegations of murder, burglary with firearms, and smuggling. The State Department was notified, but the DCI is not looking into it. Renee informs Coulter that Lawson has a history of extreme violence and is a murderer. Max's research yields results. He locates the statues, but Coulter tells him it's not the end of it. Coulter wants to support Lawson with Nate's assistance since he won't leave witnesses alive. Max is reminded by Coulter that Lawson wants retribution and that this is all personal. Coulter cautions, "You need to consider what comes next." Lawson says Chelsea will be alright if her husband brings back the item he took, while he tosses a blindfolded and bound Chelsea over his shoulder. Coulter advises Max to inform Lawson that he has the sculptures when he phones him. Lawson lets Chelsea know where he is and says he wants to meet in an hour. Coulter says he has a plan and that Max has to meet him. Nate affirms that he is an accomplished shot, and they must prepare for his vehicle. When they arrive at the building, it is already night, and before Max gets out of the car, Coulter asks him to review the plan. While Coulter takes Chelsea and brings her to safety, Nate will position himself to take down Lawson. Coulter discreetly positions himself when Lawson comes, taking Barkley by the leash. Coulter has Barkley wait while Max approaches Lawson with the bag of figurines when Max pulls up in front of him. Before he passes it over, Max demands evidence that Chelsea is alright. Coulter searches the back of Lawson's truck while they quarrel over who gets to provide what first. Max is wounded in the arm by Lawson, and just as Lawson is ready to shoot Max again, Nate takes one shot, killing Lawson. Tragically, they are unaware of Chelsea's whereabouts and she wasn't in the truck. But Coulter has Barkley follow the smell since Chelsea's scarf is in the vehicle. With his nose to the floor, Barkley dashes into the building, barking now and again to make sure Coulter follows. Coulter pushes a door open when Barkley pauses in front of it. Lawson put Chelsea in the container within. Coulter reassures her that Max is doing well and that he is available to assist. Chelsea is fined when police and an ambulance arrive on the scene. They all thank Coulter as she gives her husband and Nate hugs. Before Coulter and the dog he was paid to fetch depart, Barkley is petted by Chelsea and Max as well. Coulter brings Aidan and his mother a very tail-waggly Barkley as the morning breaks. "What if we call it a favor among friends?" Coulter asks as Aidan gives him his birthday money. Coulter says, "Perhaps save some of that money and get your mom something nice." Aidan concurs and grins. Coulter is glad to have Barkley again where he is loved, and they appreciate him. For the purpose of keeping them secure he gives them a new tag that just has the phone number on it, not the address. Coulter speculates that Barkley could be named after Charles Barkley, while Aiden questions whether Barkley's name came from his frequent barking. Coulter finds it unfortunate that Aiden doesn't even remember the name. After claiming he didn't have time for this trip, Coulter makes an unexpected visit to Reenie's new workplace as episode 7 comes to a close. He gives Reenie and Velma a hug and expresses gratitude that they got him a dashcam. Since he is Mr. Prepared, Reenie is surprised that he didn't already have one.
Very good at what I do.
Number 4. NCIS Origins Season 1 Episode 7 One Flew Over. One Flew Over, the 7th episode of the first season of NCIS Origins, explores the emotional problems and private lives of the show's protagonists, especially Mike Franks and Leroy Jethro Gibbs.
You know, whatever you want in it. You still...
I would have been here sooner, but my time with your pops before I called.
According to the CBS synopsis of tonight's NCIS Origins Season 1 Episode 7, One Flew Over, NCIS investigates the murder of a dementia-afflicted Jane Doe. Additionally, flashbacks show Gibbs and Frank's initial encounter. Alice Glenn, a dementia patient, is discovered dead close to a military installation at the beginning of the episode. After investigating their first suspicions of foul activity, the crew finds Lefty, a cunning person who appears to know more than he admits. But the team soon learns that Alice's death was caused by her daughter-in-law, who killed her by mistake during a fight and tried to hide it. When he returned home to Stillness, it was the toughest part of losing his family. His music was not being listened to by his wife. His kid wasn't observing her preferred program. There was nothing but quiet. Gibbs found a new house since he couldn't face that alone at home. Instead of coming home to an empty house, he would rather lease a void in the wall. In the end, he discovered a place he could afford. He had hardly been there when Franks knocked. Gibbs looked beaten to Franks. He realized Gibbs needed something to fight for, so he helped him land a position with NCIS. He wasn't mistaken either. Gibbs had nothing but the job. He would later be defined by it. However, at the beginning, he was still learning. A corporal called NCIS regarding a bag along the side of the road. It was a woman's pocketbook. It was covered with blood. The corporal was worried that one of the women may be in danger. NCIS tracked a blood trail from the road after he reported what he had discovered. They immediately discovered an old woman's body. The coyotes had already begun to sniff about. Franks had to use his gun to frighten him away before NCIS arrived on the scene. Jane Doe was initially the victim's name. She was discovered wearing her pajamas. There were no helpful items in her purse, only images. According to the medical examiner, she was in her early 70s. No one who fit the victim's description was missing. Hours passed before someone came forward after realizing she was gone. The name of the victim was Alice Glenn. Her son served in a military unit. She and his family lived on base. Alice had dementia. She lived alone until she was unable to do so any longer. And sometimes she goes off by herself. In a heartbreaking moment that opens the episode, Gibbs returns to the quiet of his house, a sobering reminder of the family he has lost. He chooses a new location, a little rental that turns become his haven, since he cannot bear the emptiness. He is a defeated man in need of a purpose when Franks finds him here. Realizing that Gibbs needed a change of pace, Franks assists him in landing a position with NCIS, a choice that would ultimately shape Gibbs' life. We witness Gibbs in the early stages of his NCIS employment, still getting his bearings as the program goes on. The crew is called in to look into a bloodied and abandoned pocketbook that was discovered by the side of the road. This brings them to the body of Alice Glenn, an old woman who was murdered after being robbed. Alice, who had dementia, had a propensity to go missing, and the inquiry is delayed because her family is reluctant to declare her missing because of the violation of her living arrangements. When NCIS learns that Alice's death was a terrible accident that her daughter-in-law concealed rather than a random act of violence, the investigation takes a darker turn. In a fit of rage and confusion brought on by her dementia, Alice had struck her daughter-in-law, who shoved her, resulting in a deadly fall. The case is made more complicated by the daughter-in-law's attempt to hide the occurrence by making it appear to be a robbery. In the interim, a bird that flies into Gibbs' apartment provides him with unexpected comfort. As a metaphor for his own need to recover and be wanted, he tends to the bird's needs by giving it a home and care. The bird's final flight represents Gibbs' personal path to acceptance and healing. Franks, however, is dealing with a personal problem. Tish, his wife, learns that he is looking into a case of sexual assault she wants to forget. Their relationship reaches a breaking point as a result of Frank's determination on seeking justice, or maybe retribution, and Tish gives him a warning: either comply with her demands or go. At the end of the episode, the murder case has been resolved, and the jury will decide Alice's daughter-in-law's destiny. Although another tragedy has been resolved by NCIS, Gibbs and Franks are still affected in various ways by the emotional fallout. A compelling television show, One Flew Over, demonstrates the character's nuance and the performer's capacity to portray a range of nuanced emotions. The episode is more than simply a murder mystery, it's a voyage into the thoughts and emotions of people who are battling their own dark forces and seeking justice. It is evidence of the show's skill at striking a balance between action and emotion, offering a compelling story that gets audiences interested and concerned in the lives of the characters. The title of the episode, One Flew Over, alludes subtly to the concepts of escape and freedom, whether it is the character's efforts to overcome previous experiences or the bird's departure from Gibbs' flat. All through the whole show, this motif recurs, assuring us that there is always hope, even in the most dire circumstances. In summary, One Flew Over is a noteworthy episode from the first season of NCIS Origins that gives us more insight into Gibbs and Franks and gives them more nuanced personalities that will undoubtedly affect their choices and actions in the episodes. It serves as a potent reminder of the program's capacity to deliver gripping tales that appeal to viewers' emotions and intellect.
Dropped everything.
Number 3. Special Ops Lioness Season 2 Episode 7 2381.
What is our position on this?
For risk of jeopardizing undercover agent. So much less than mine. What do you see when you look at yours?
A big brother and the coolest son.
After the unsuccessful rescue attempt against the cartels, Zoe Saldana appears completely confused at the start of Lioness Season 2 Episode 6. What can they say to the responding police officers? Bobby, Jill Wagner asks. Joe advises her not to remark since they still have spies undercover. Joe questions if the girl she put the tracker on would still be alive if they hadn't tried to save her, even though Bobby attempts to reassure him that what happened wasn't her fault. The incident's aftermath is rapidly intensifying. As soon as Byron, played by Michael Kelly, finds out, he orders Joe to board an aircraft for a debriefing. The other authorities that have responded to the site, meanwhile, don't appear to be as eager as Joe is to ignore this incident. The entire endeavor is going haywire when you include a possible mole in Joe's crew and chaos at the Carrillo home. Josefina, Genesis Rodriguez, tells Cruz, Leisla de Oliveira, that she is afraid of her father, Pablo, Demian Castro, and that she no longer recognizes him the morning after their uneasy first meal at the Carrillo home. She claims to have believed her father was immortal after he saved a baby that had fallen from a horse when she was 9 years old. According to Cruz, girls frequently see themselves at the age of their dads in their best recollections and think of them as they were at that time. However, Josefina is no longer 9 years old, and her father is not who she believed him to be. She needs to discuss their purpose with him. Josefina strikes up the difficult subject after a brief exchange of pleasantries with her father. She informs him that the CIA is aware of his affiliation with her uncle's cartel. Pablo lashes out at his daughter in a fit of rage. He shouts, "Why would the CIA try to ruin their family when they don't care about drugs?" Cruz enters and stops him before he can attack her again, proving to Josefina that they are CIA.
Yes, Papa.
Save.
Nobody has the lumber business, Chiquita.
I think it smells.
This new love. Who is they?
Nobody asked me questions. I asked them.
Who the Who?
Sideways yesterday.
What do they want? Alvaro.
We need this to play out.
About the CIA. 9/11. Then your CIA. About drugs.
And I bet they really.
This should answer that.
The house backyard.
Option number 1, we arrest you right now.
Security tape captured all of this, and it shows Pablo's guys running toward the home. However, Randy, Austin Hebert, Tex, Jonah Wharton, and 2 Cups, James Jordan also saw and are arriving as reinforcements. They secure the home and send out the security crew. Cruz informs Pablo that he has 2 choices. Either he cooperates with them by assisting in the identification of a foreign asset and is subsequently placed under witness protection, or they arrest him right away for his involvement with the cartels, take his assets, and throw him in county prison, where he is unlikely to survive the night. Pablo appears to hesitantly choose option 2. 2 Cups encounters the maid, at sea, Sophie Calderon, as the group works to secure the Carrillo residence. She is wearing a wire, which he discovers when searching for her. Joe and her crew were not informed by D-Agent Guy Terres, Kirk Acevedo, that she is an informant. When 2 Cups contacts Joe on her personal phone to let him know that her work phone isn't functioning, she takes it out and discovers it has been shot to pieces, which startles and scares her right away. She is informed by 2 Cup that the operation has been compromised and that they have 9 hours to devise a new strategy before the next Carrillo security squad arrives for their shift. Joe gives him instructions to find a safe location and tell Kyle, Thad Luck and Bill everything, particularly regarding Guy Terres. Kyle and the rest of the squad are obviously upset that Guy Terres could be a mole. Under the pretense that they must return to base, they get him into the car. They promise to uncover the truth, but once he's in the car, they begin hitting him and calling him a mole. When Joe ends his call with 2 Cups, she takes off her equipment and discovers that she was shot during the rescue operation and that the bullet is still inside of her without an exit wound. She phones Caitlin, Nicole Kidman, and informs her that she requires surgery after being shot in the liver. In under 20 minutes, Caitlin has the jet redirected to land at a military facility, but Joe's condition is rapidly deteriorating. Neil, played by Dave Annable, is at a soccer match with the girls when Joe contacts him. Joe appears skeptical that she will survive this one, so she reminds him, breathlessly, that the sun rises and sets with him and that he must look after the girls. Joe faints while Neil frantically inquires as to what's happening. A doctor treats Joe once the plane lands and takes her to a hospital so she may have surgery. Joe is undergoing surgery, but Caitlin informs Byron that it is still unclear if she will survive as they enter the Situation Room to meet with Mullen, Morgan Freeman and his crew. She also tells him that Guy Terres kept the Carrillos in the dark about his source, which they may use to deflect part of the blame for what has happened. Upon entering the Situation Room, they are immediately presented with a news item on the failed mission. It appears that other agencies did not share the CIA's preference for silence. This starts a heated argument in which everyone accuses one another of being responsible for the mission's out-of-control development and drastic change from its initial plan. Mullen calms everyone down by inquiring about how they will move past this. What are the hazards and is the mission still feasible? Caitlin tells them how the failure to disclose Guy Terres' source jeopardized their Lioness mission. Even though Guy Terres is a federal agent, they are allowed to imprison him due to Code 2831, which is for treason, stating that his withholding of information can be categorized as helping an enemy of the state. As a result, they presently have Pablo in jail and Guy Terres in detention. Byron adds that they must change the mission's objective since they are unable to quit despite all the hazards. They decide to assassinate Josefina's uncle, Alvaro Carrillo, as a hard target hit rather than an undercover infiltrating operation, and they hope that the Chinese agent they're really after is with them. To tidy up when the job is finished, they will murder Pablo and Guy Terres. Mullen must leave because of the risks of this scheme in order to have deniability. It is hinted that Byron and Caitlin have the go-ahead, even though his allies claim they cannot approve such a black operations mission. At the base, Guy Terres is being tortured by Kyle and the crew in order to get information, but Caitlin takes over the investigation when she gets there. She claims that they have all of the information on Guy Terres' family and that they would divulge it if he doesn't participate, putting them in danger from the cartels. Guy Terres talks as a result, although he insists he is not a mole. For years, he had been on Carrillo, even employing the maid as an informant because she used to nanny his children. However, he didn't have her wear a wire until the CIA arrived. He claims that despite his years of observation, there is no concrete proof that Carrillo is connected to the cartel. He received his house as a bequest from the guy who constructed it, and his financial accounts are in normal condition. To make sure all of this is real, Caitlin wants Kyle to have Guy Terres take a polygraph test. If he doesn't pass, she advises Kyle to throw Guy Terres in the river. In the meanwhile, Caitlin meets Cruz and that team in Dallas with Bobby and Tucker, LaMonica Garrett. Speaking of, Pablo only stares at Josefina angrily as they keep him in a safe place. Josefina looks back at her father with equal intensity, albeit she is unable to control her tears. Number 2.
Piss my fucking pants.
Landman Season 1 Episode 1 Landman. Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan's most recent Paramount Plus original series is called Landman. Billy Bob Thornton plays Tommy Norris in the 10-episode drama, which is set in the Permian Basin in West Texas, the country's most productive oil sector. He works as a weather-beaten crisis executive for MTEX Oil, where his demanding duties include overseeing the crews that operate on the property, leasing the area, and resolving the numerous disasters that occur in such a hazardous setting. It's evident right away in the first episode that Tommy, Thornton, is wearing a lot of cojones. Two armed men of the Mexican cartel, bound and wearing blindfolds, watch him passively until Tommy's Texan twang disturbs the stillness. He must use the room for the young lads. His plea is ignored until he asks in Spanish, which causes snickers at first, followed by indignation as one of them slaps him with his weapon. But Tommy doesn't lose his cool. Even when a more senior criminal member walks in and shoots Tommy nonchalantly in front of him after a quick back and forth with his buddy. Although there is a contentious dispute over who owns the land, Tommy is there to reach an agreement on the lease with the cartel on behalf of MTEX Oil. Tommy doesn't think twice about arguing with the cartel boss when he claims it's their territory. The surface is yours, which you bought from Daniel Pearsall, whose father gave the Permian Basin Trust the rights to in 1993. He now asserts with sincerity that MTEX is the rightful owner of those rights. The cartel member plays with the idea of hanging Tommy's body from a bridge once he is killed. However, it's obvious that the crisis manager believes they are unbeatable. He claims that if you tried it, the FBI would respond by deploying drones to Mexico with 30 Tier 1 operators to eliminate them. Not to be daunted, he gives them a deadline. Here's the deal, and it's the only deal: you don't F with our product, and we don't F with yours. After signing the lease, they depart. When Tommy takes off his mask, we see our grizzled hero for the first time. He gulps down several beers while chain smoking as he describes the extremely demanding aspects of the work. First, make sure the land is secure. The portion that can kill you comes next. Watch over the staff and the owners. When the infants refuse to be sat, handle the police and the media. It seems sense that he is targeting the Michelob Ultras hard, since that is a lot of folks to please. Tommy faces the beginning of yet another demanding week as the sun rises over the Permian Basin. He's getting ready for Monday by looking pretty ill and injecting himself with a variety of medications. It's not Monday, though. For those who work in the basin, life has a peculiar rhythm, consisting of 12-hour shifts that are continuous for weeks at a time. That's why it feels that way. Together with two of his co-workers, Tommy resides in Midland, Odessa, oil and gas lawyer Nathan, column fear and petroleum engineer Dale, James Jordan, a scruffy-looking guy who sits about eating beans from the can. Tommy is reminded by Nathan not to be late for his 11 a.m. deposition at the courthouse. However, his phone calls a few seconds later. Although it is now only a burned-out shell, the plane that he reported missing weeks ago has been located. He apologizes and rushes to the scene of the event. When Sheriff Walt Joberg, Mark Colley, shows up there, he tells him it's worse than it seems. There are illicit drugs and bodies that have been flame-grilled all over the place. Even worse, when Tommy's jet vanished 6 weeks ago, he failed to notify the authorities that it had been stolen. Hell, he shot back, he told the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. Shouldn't they tell the police? Walt is pressed to lie in an official police report, but he agrees to mention that he reported it to the FAA instead. Tommy has to put in a lot of effort to limit his losses now. In addition to the necessity to reroute a daily supply of 4,200 barrels from the crime site, a criminal investigation is probably still ongoing. Tommy's phone flares up with a menacing ringtone and a picture of his ex-wife Angela, Ali Lato, while he tries to call his employer Monty Miller, John Hamm. She's making sure he hasn't forgotten that he needs to look after their mischievous 17-year-old daughter, Ainsley, during the weekend. He makes arrangements for Ainsley to board the next aircraft down to Cabo, where she and her boyfriend are leaving.
Fucking years old.
I mean, she could get pregnant from the fuck.
Have her go to Meacham. I'll put her.
Color.
So what time are you?
Do you like it?
It's his first day. First day's or fucking hang up.
The way I got started in this, I did this one particular, my Arabic, even though I was beginning to dim.
They've been sucking that oil for 100 years. For 5 cents on the dollar. That ain't big.
TTP.
All right, well, I'll handle TT.
This is the bad.
He's out there right now. You gotta go.
Angela's frequent aggressive flirting over the phone makes it obvious that she still has sentiments for Tommy. After that, we transition to a glistening city. After scolding other oil and gas sector titans for failing to seize property when COVID struck, Monty excuses himself to answer a call from Tommy. Monty frequently submits to his decision-making since he is his most trusted counsel. Tommy cautions that MTEX Oil is going to face criticism from the insurance provider, the relatives of the victims, and TTP, the business whose truck went off. Monty emphasizes the necessity of keeping the incident from becoming public, and he gives the name of a litigator. Tommy's response: "It's just another Monday, an oil tanker running over a drug-filled airplane isn't news." Monty tells him, "Dude, it's not Monday." Tommy and two of his co-workers, oil and gas lawyer Nathan, column fear and petroleum engineer Dale, James Jordan, who looks scruffy and sits about eating beans from the can, reside in Midland, Odessa. Tommy is reminded by Nathan to arrive at the courts promptly for his 11 a.m. deposition. While Dakota had the attention of a small star, Ainsley opened up to her father while they were pulling in to watch a football game before heading home. Dakota will shortly be going to Alabama University, where she informed him she would die if she didn't get accepted. Tommy asked whether they were having sex. They do have a rule, though. He immediately felt bad about inquiring what that was. The crewman Luis, Emilio Rivera, called him briefly while he was dazed to give him an update on his son Cooper's first day on the patch. He's green, but he tries. That evening, while Ainsley and Dakota were canoeing directly in front of Tommy, he claimed that he was going to bed. He wasn't abandoning Ainsley and Dakota, though. While the football-playing stud received the junior suite, which includes the sofa, he promised her she would share his room. Although Tommy's experience told him differently, Ainsley thought Dakota was the one. He gave in and allowed her to sit with him on the couch, even though he openly questioned when he had had his cojones chopped off. He acknowledged that they had had sex but had never just slept together. Cooper, Jacob Laughlin, Tommy's kid, started his first day working as a roughneck for MTEX Oil before the sun had even risen. Luis and Armando called him to join the daily migrant laborers to the patch, Michael Pena. Norris, baby, they offered to give Copper a ride because they knew his dad. He got in next to Elvio, Alejandro Acara, and sat quietly as the radio played Spanish music. Everything seemed somber until they arrived at Babe's En Brew, a coffee restaurant with waitresses dressed in pink bikinis. Instead of getting a fuss-free black coffee, Cooper made the rookie mistake of getting a latte. His other travelers were righteously outraged by this, and Armando responded by yelling, "The white kid ordered a latte," to the increasing line of drive-through patrons. Cooper was raised by brothers Armando and Elvio and their uncle Luis, which meant that his first day was a miserable horror. A strapped Cooper lost his balance, fell, and dropped around 40 feet before he managed to grab hold of the ladder as he continued to ascend a dizzying tower seeking a tucker valve that did not exist. Elvio rushed up the ladder to entice him down, now in a state of astonishment. Although he wasn't quite roughneck material, he had gained Luis and his family's respect after a difficult day on the patch. They welcomed him into their house, made fun of the Caucasian's dislike of spicy cuisine, and urged him to begin studying Spanish. However, it wasn't shocking when things took a drastic turn after all of this bonding. Cooper, Luis, Elvio, and Armando came the next day to fix an oil well. The pipes and valves were completely rusty, and they lacked the proper tool for the task. Cooper was told to get a 24-inch pipe wrench. He took his sweet time discovering it because he was still a rookie. Nevertheless, Luis continued, pounding away methodically with his inadequate tools, oblivious to the faint hiss of gas. At last, Cooper touched the wrench and turned to sprint back. However, once Luis delivered a single, crushing hammer strike, the entire area burst into flames. The blast's power pushed Cooper back, and the whole apparatus turned into a blazing conflagration. LVO, Armando, and Luis were gone, and a never-ending column of flames erupted from the earth. Number 1. Top on this list is Dune Prophecy Season 1 Episode 2. Two Wolves. Dune, Prophecy's second episode opens with the repercussions from Desmond's assaults. Once again, as more parts of the jigsaw are revealed and the situation becomes more exciting, there's a pleasant change in pace to everything.
Heat source was internal.
Whatever it was.
The founding sisters were willing to die.
Accident. Take care of things here.
Although there is no proof that an accelerant was used on the victims, the palace is aflutter with theories about what may have happened. But one thing is certain at this moment, it is most certainly not an accident when a truthsayer is killed just before a formal wedding. To try to address this, the sisters rally and maintain their vigilance. Seeing all of this as the Mother Superior's prophesied warning, Valia makes the decision to depart for Salusa Secundus because she feels compelled to defend the princess. Valia talks to Sister Theodosia, who earlier in the episode promoted the assassination scenario, before leaving.
No death as you arrive here at the pub. No. No.
I did for you.
This is madness.
Here, Valia wants to become close to the princess and become her confidant by using Theodosia. Chula's job is to persuade Leela to communicate with her ancestors in the meanwhile. She might be able to answer their questions. Valia is certain that the girl will succeed if Chula guides her, but Chula is obviously torn about this. Here, she will let Leela take her own choices, unlike her sister, who will impose her will. This is kind of a two-edged sword since, although it's a commendable choice and makes her one of the more likable characters in the program, it also throws all the women's futures into the open, which is dangerous. In the palace, emotions are high following Pruitt's passing. At the moment, the public is being told that this incident was an accident, but we are clearly aware of otherwise.
The fleet to come in with pulse atomics. Because in death we'll be reunited.
Desmond addresses the Emperor privately. Having done all of this for the Emperor himself, the former wishes to be used as a weapon. Stuck in astonishment, the Emperor decides to arrest him once he has had enough of his smirks. Interestingly, though, it's evident that he has reservations because he chooses to keep the entire endeavor a secret and not share it with anybody.
What about the Richard?
Who killed my son?
I heard the news.
Wrong.
And your spice operation. Fine.
Where is Kasha? She's what?
Suspecting Pruitt Richese's murder. Keeping this truth from the Duke.
Very well.
Although Pruitt's passing scarcely affects Inez, she nevertheless recognizes that it is a tragedy. She realizes that the true power in this situation is who controls Arrakis, yet she nonetheless sneaks in a sexual encounter with Constantine. The Empire is under the sway of the spice. Because she's not only using Constantine to satiate her cravings, Inez is cunning in this situation. Additionally, she is receiving information from him, including a hint of Desmond's incarceration. She believes they shouldn't be so quick to eliminate him when the Emperor tells her about Desmond's attack and his belief that the sandworm granted him enormous strength. She firmly believes that they should use him as a weapon against their adversaries. When Duke Ferdinand Riches is on the warpath, this is more difficult to do. He wants to see the man who killed Pruitt, but Valia's arrival interrupts them. She wants to talk to Desmond directly, even if she knows the Emperor is lying about Pruitt's passing when he pretends to be unaware. The Mother Superior receives what she desires and is somewhat surprised by his audacious and brazen demeanor. He confesses to annihilating Pruitt and Kasha, and he explains that he did so in order to eradicate corruption. Desmond's desire to approach the throne is evident, but Valia is unsure of how to deal with him at this time. She is certain, though, that she will meet with one of her connections to talk more about this. Here, Kieran confesses his ulterior motive, while Inez demands right wants that Theodosia disclose how Kasha died. As it seems, the Swordsmaster is secretly collaborating with a rebel faction and has successfully brought the plans to the royal room. The Carino Empire is undoubtedly their aim, and an assault on Constantine serves as their final piece. Sister Michaela, whom Valia has a contact with, appears to have been responsible for planning the rebel raids on the harvesters on Arrakis.
The Romans assuage the Emperor's fear.
Don't know whether to be offended or... Let's not talk.
I'm Pruitt.
The broken chain.
Look into the palace. I want to look weak to the great houses. We are all just...
She also names one of the rebels as Kieran. Chula talks to Leela once again in another scene and describes how to use her abilities. It's definitely dangerous, and she doesn't mince words about how dangerous this is. With the straightforward directive to follow the light when she is overcome by darkness, she describes how this operates, and Leela ultimately chooses to comply. It's fascinating that among the visions she experiences, the former Mother Superior depicts the actual events of that horrific killing that took place in the throne chamber all those years ago. As she manipulates Leela, she tells the sisters that she will take their hope. Then Leela's death occurs. The Empress, meantime, chooses to quiet Duke Riches with their newly acquired weapon. The man's flesh is burned to cinder by Desmond as they gaze at each other in the throne chamber. After pleading for forgiveness, Desmond finally stops when the Emperor gives him a little nod. Shortly thereafter, Valia comes to the palace, requesting a meeting with the Emperor. Instead, though, she is in Desmond's company. She has been expelled from the palace together with the other sisters, and he delivers news that her rights have been removed. Like the last Mother Superior, Valia plays her hand and utilizes her abilities to manipulate Desmond into hurting himself. However, Desmond effortlessly defeats her and puts his sword safely in his pouch, demonstrating that her powers are ineffective in this situation. Although Valia quickly leaves after losing, it is evident that the battle is far from done.
Now I'm taking your hope.
For the fleet, that cannot be.
Let them choke on you.
After the official programming, I would like to say, it's always an honor and I love you guys so much, whenever and wherever you are watching my recaps from. Huge thanks for watching, and with that I would love to say OKTV today and Guro have partnered to share this message about climate change. Guro research shows that watching a half-hour show creates 1.6 kilograms of CO2 emissions. Guro therefore suggests, to sustainably reduce this emissions, let's embrace taking actions now. These include walking, biking or taking public transport, switching to electric vehicles, eating more vegetables, saving energy at home, planting more trees, reducing, reusing, repairing and recycling what you can, and last but not least, speak up. So that we can continue to enjoy more TV shows and episodes like this. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to check out the OKTV Today's YouTube channel, where we have hundreds of videos like this. If you enjoyed it, just leave a comment and let me know about it. If you want to see our newest episode, make sure you subscribe to get notification.